welcome to On the Kerbs. I'm your host, Team Hours Daily. Joining me this week is British Endurance Championship driver Matt George. We called up Risley to chat about starting his career off with Aston Martin, how that's led to driving Mercedes AMG this year, what a typical week of training looks like for a racing driver, what made him want to become a professional coach, and much more. So, without any further ado, let's just get straight into it, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. So, hi Matt, thanks for being here today. First of all, how are you?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So, first question I'd like to ask everyone who comes on here, what first got you into motorsport?
A weird obsession with motocross, actually. Always wanted to be a motocross rider. Had a good go at it when I was younger, and to be honest, wasn't any good. Had a couple of massive crashes. And then ended up at a friend's birthday party doing like pay-as-you-go go-karting or whatever, where you pay on a pro kart for 20 minutes. Wiped the floor with all my friends, which I was incredibly smug about. It was my 8-year-old self. And then the people who owned the karting track approached my parents and said, "You should get him a go-kart. He's pretty good at this." And having nearly killed myself multiple times on the motocross bike, it didn't take very long until the bike had disappeared from the garage, and there was a go-kart at the door, and that was it really. Many years later, now I'm here.
I was going to say, yeah, you've gone on quite a bit of a journey since then, and hopefully significantly less crashes than you had in the motocross car.
Luckily, in my 7 to 8 year professional driving career, I've had less crashes than I had in probably the 6 months I did motocross for.
Get it all out of the way early. That's the strategy there.
Yeah.
So, as part of that 7-8 year journey, you were with Aston Martin in their driver academy back in 2019. How the heck did that come about, and how did it feel when it actually happened?
So I actually used to work at a company called Base Performance Simulators, which is owned by Darren Turner, where I met the founder of Superdry. And the founder of Superdry then became the first person I ever raced with in cars in British GT in 2016, which again was with Aston Martin. And I've never raced with anyone other than Aston Martin up until fairly recently. And basically worked my ass off is the truth of the matter. I'm not privileged to come from a place where I can afford to pay for racing. So any opportunity that came around, I had to make sure that I was working harder or doing a better job than the next guy. And then Aston picked up on that and took me on their program, although not an academy driver for the whole period I've been racing. I have been working with the Aston factory for pretty much my whole racing career, with shakedowns and car development and all those sorts of things really. So it was a logical step. Yeah, exactly. So becoming tight knit with a factory was a logical step at the time. And just helped expand what I could do at Aston. So it was an awesome opportunity. I was really heavily involved in the development of the new GT4 and GT3 car, which I take great pride in the fact that are winning lots of races around the world at the moment. So obviously
take some credit for that.
Yeah, it's 100% down to me, no one else. And yes, it was an awesome feeling. I got put into some crazy races in GT Masters and over in America and all sorts of things. I met like such a wealth of people through being in that program. And to be fair, bits and pieces of that have probably led me to again being sat here with what is hopefully the next step.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just going to there's so much that I could pick apart into there and dive into further, but it's like how many kind of pinch yourself moments were there as part of that? Like you say, you got to go to America, you got to help develop these cars. Were the kind of points where you're like, okay, yeah, you've worked your ass off for this, but still, it's kind of hard to believe at the same time that you're actually doing it, or are you used to it now and you're over that?
No, to be honest, I do my best to stay incredibly humble about it. I know that I got incredibly lucky to get into motorsport. My parents are quite old school, which I very much thank them for. They kind of drummed into me right when I was in karting that I was probably never going to be a professional driver, even though I wanted to when I started my karting career properly, that I should start looking at other things. Education was really important. Working with teams was really important, all that sort of stuff. So multiple pinch myself moments. Have I actually ever really had time since the day that I got in a car to pinch myself? No, not really. Because the majority of the pinch yourself moments come on an instant. Like when I did my first round of GT Masters in Hockenheim, first time racing in a GT3 car in GT Masters was a bit of a baptism of fire, but I had the call up for that less than 24 hours before qualifying.
Seems to always be the case.
Yeah, it was a massive pinch yourself moment, but to be honest, I didn't have time. So
was there maybe a moment after that weekend where you thought, did that just happen, or was that just a long fever dream?
To be honest, it's I've never really gone, wow, that's absolutely incredible. I've loved that, because as soon as you take a step, I'm an incredibly focused individual. I then move on to the next step. So once
maybe in like 30, 40 years, it'll set in then.
Exactly, yeah. Maybe when I'm like 80, knocking about on a golf course somewhere sunny, then I'll reflect on it all. But until then, it's 100% forwards to the next big thing at the moment.
Back here in 2022, though, you're competing in British Endurance Championship, and it's not with Aston Martin. You're in a Mercedes AMG. What's the switch been like? Like you say, you've been with Aston Martin for as long as you can remember, really. And what made this the time to change it up a bit?
To be honest, it was mainly down to the customer that I'm racing with. I don't really have any tie to Aston anymore. I don't really race with that many people involved with Aston. And he was actually looking for an Aston, and it was through some unfortunate circumstances that he couldn't get one. He could get one through Mercedes, absolutely phenomenal place. They manufacture 2 cars every single week without fail. The scale that they do motorsport on is unreal. And I'm not going to lie, there's always been a part of me that's always wanted to race with or for Mercedes. And still very much is, and that hunger is still really there. So the opportunity came around with this customer to do the British Endurance Championship in the car, and I grabbed it with both hands. To be honest, the cars are pretty similar. The thing with GT racing is obviously you have this balance of performance, which roughly tells the cars to handle and feel pretty similar. The Aston and the Merc share quite a lot of components. Like the ECU is the same, the engine's the same, the ABS is the same, the age you have in the car is the same. There's a lot of similarities. So the switch, to be honest, hasn't been that difficult. I've also been very lucky.
Quite a natural transition then.
Yeah, I'd say so. And to be honest, in the last year, I've been quite lucky that because I haven't been so fixed with Aston, I've actually driven a huge wealth of cars. So I've become quite diverse in hopping in and out of stuff. So
it always makes for a better racing driver overall, generally. If you could just get as many different cars in there as you can, you generally translate quite well when you go racing them.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely in terms of like your own self-belief, I suppose. I believe motorsport is quite a lot to do with your mind. And I think if you get in anything and you can genuinely believe, not like in an act, but genuinely believe that you can handle anything that comes at you, I think you can be as fast as anyone, which, without sounding too big-headed, I genuinely believe now. So
If
yeah,
you've got the results to back it up, then it works fine. You can say as much as you like.
yeah, exactly. I mean, my first weekend in the AMG, we qualified on pole, set the lap record in qualifying for Silverstone, so official
Not
qualifying
too
lap record
shabby.
holder now, and a podium in the first ever GT race for the customer that I was racing with, and only his 7th race ever. So I think it all went
Not a
pretty
bad
well,
way
to be
to start
honest.
off things.
Yeah, and it was absolutely monsoon rain. In all fairness, it was some of the worst conditions I've ever raced in. So yeah, he did an incredible job. The team and the car was amazing. So yeah, it was really good, really good.
Definitely can't say you didn't work for that one then.
No, no, it was tough, but yeah, well worth it.
You're saying it's kind of motorsport has a lot to go with the mind, but as well, there's a lot of training physically that you've got to do with it as well. What does a typical week of fitness look like for you?
For me, to be honest, it's relatively up and down. The hardest thing with keeping your fitness up is obviously with the racing. There's an awful lot of travel, and being away from a normal routine. But I will train in the gym or do some sort of training pretty much every single day. Um, and that would consist of probably 4 hours a week of strength training and 3 to 5 hours a week of cardio, which I'm pretty religious with. A lot for myself as much as anything. I think it's quite a nice time to not have to think about anything, turn your phone off.
Is it that part of kind of like there's such a lack of routine the rest of the time that you can keep this bit of routine at least in there, even if the place you're doing it is different, you've got these set things that you can keep doing each day?
Yeah, and it's quite nice that it's something that, although I have trainers in Boomerang Pro Fitness and things like that, it's also something I can have a bit of control over. It's a little bit of time of myself, whereas everything else I do is driven by other people or manufacturers or whatever. So yeah, I definitely relish in that.
So back to the racing bit, is there, and I hope imagine there would be, a fun racing related story that you can tell?
To be honest, a fun racing related story, unsure. There is quite a funny moment that I did have at the Goodwood Festival of Speed.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I just finished the hill climb and we were 5th, which for that year was the fastest GT car, which I'd done in a GT4 car, which I was well happy with. I'm coming back down the hill, and you come down relatively slowly and show off to the crowd. Obscene amount of people there. It's amazing. It was last weekend. It's absolutely incredible event. And I thought I'd get a bit cocky and go on Facebook Live as I was coming down the hill, and I'm like showing all the fans and stuff. And I stop and do a burnout. And as I do the burnout, I'm on Facebook Live recording like this. The car snaps over a bump, and I hit the hay bale, but like only just, and it just clips it, and straw flies everywhere behind me. And I was like, do you know what? That was close. Like, got out of the car straight away, checked, and it wasn't damaged or anything. I was like, thank God for that. So no one would know.
That was planned. That was all meant to happen.
Exactly. Didn't mention anything on Facebook Live. Watch the video back later. You can't quite see it. Didn't mention anything to the team or anything like that. And then 2 weeks later, I get sent this video, this YouTube clip of one of the fans recording me coming down the hill. And I get sent this by the team manager, and you can see me go at like 90 degrees and hit the hay bales. And he was like, "Were you ever going to tell us about this?" And I was like, "No." The one time I get
maybe.
caught. Yeah, absolute nightmare. But yeah, that was quite a funny moment.
So like you said, that close shave, it could have been a lot worse there.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, that whole weekend was just funny. Everything about it was hilarious. If you haven't been to the Festival of Speed, 100% go. It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, apart from that, I tend to take my race weekends pretty seriously. but especially with the pro-am relationship, which is pretty common these days. 90% of it is about them. So my bit is really serious when I'm in the car, and then when I'm out of the car, it's 100% focused on improving them. So we have a lot of fun, but funny moments are few and far between, I'd say.
So serious fun rather than fun, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. We just enjoy what we do, but we take it very seriously at the same time.
So it sounds like the right kind of balance there that you need for that. And I mean, like you say, you got the results to kind of back that up. So it's clearly the approach is working.
Yeah.
You're also a professional coach. What made you want to get into that side of things?
To be honest, it probably wasn't so much of a want. It was more of it kind of happened. So from working at the simulator company, I used to coach a lot of drivers through that before I got my professional contracts. Then a big chunk of GT racing is pro-am, as I just kind of hinted at. So being able to work with an amateur, coach amateurs, improve them is super important. Probably more important than my own physical improvements. So that kind of came with part of the job. I suppose I'm quite lucky as well. I actually come from like a family of teachers or instructors. So my mum teaches horse riding all the way up to like an Olympic level. And my dad was a flight instructor, so pilot. So I suppose the natural progression for me
at some point.
was that I was going to teach people to drive cars. So
so you've got like three pretty main teaching areas covered there in the family immediately, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose it wasn't a want. It kind of just happened. And to be honest, is probably fundamental to the job I do today. More than my own ability in the car. I think the reason why I get approached and get offered quite a lot of drives is mainly through my ability to work with AMs. So yeah, it's been incredibly important.
Was it a bit like you were saying earlier when you were with Aston Martin, where you'd be looking into all these different areas of how things work and getting, like you were saying, getting your fingers in all the different pies, and this is just another one that helps you develop overall and just brings that overall increasing of the quality?
Yeah, so a manufacturer, when they send you to customer teams, they want to send you as an all-round package, and you're not just there to make the car perform, you are there to improve the team. So you're looking at procedures and structures and how they're going about everything. You're there to improve the other drivers. You're there to improve the setup of the car. You're there for so much more than just to turn up and drive. So yeah, that is such a big part really about being the package that certainly manufacturers want you to be. It's very, very easy to sit there and focus on your own performance all the time and be quite selfish with it. The truth of the matter is, a manufacturer is probably a lot less interested in you as like a mid-20-year-old kid who might be able to do a fast lap time, but you're not gonna buy loads of cars, and you're certainly not going to spend lots of money racing around the world, because the likelihood is, as a 25-year-old person, you aren't going to have that money. So the important part is being able to improve the team, improve the people, get more customers in, sell cars, be approachable for sponsors, all that sort of thing, really. So yeah, probably a much bigger part than actually driving itself.
I was going to say, not that the car side of things is easy necessarily, but perhaps more straightforward. But what is the most challenging thing of that coach aspect of it? Because like you say, you know what to do with the car and how to get the more out of that, or what you can try and like see what works and see what doesn't. But when it comes to the individual, is that been more challenging for you, or has that been just a relatively smooth enough learning curve?
It's just about understanding people and how people work. Everyone is different massively. I think probably through my genetics, I've been quite lucky that I can tend to work people out relatively quickly. Certainly when it comes to stand at all. But yeah, certainly through driving and on-track performance, I seem to have a bit of a knack, I suppose, for picking up how people work best and how they're best going to improve.
And as well, it's not just you that's been in the motorsport world recently. For those who don't know, Abby, your girlfriend, also gone to motorsport recently. And most importantly, who's the quicker driver?
It's really how we met. So Abby used to race in karting. So we probably have motorsport to thank for that. And her had the opportunity to show some of the things that I believe I'm good at, and help her improve as well. And she did an amazing job. And she's a very, very, very talented girl. Scares the out of me, to be honest. We have a little Caterham track car that we've been out on, and yeah, she's terrifyingly good, and I'm not a good passenger with her, it would appear.
Are you grabbing all the side there and just holding on for dear life, or?
Yeah, I basically spend the whole time scared out my wits, and then save it all up so that when we swap over and I'm in the driver's seat, I can repay the favour. The obvious answer to who's the quicker driver is it's definitely me. If you were to ask her, it's definitely her.
So I'm just trying to think back for when I did speak to her on this, and was like, I'm pretty sure she did say her, so that makes sense. That tracks.
And if you were to ask a mutual person who knew the pair of us, I think if they knew how competitive we were, they wouldn't say either of us, because it just would not be worth the grief afterwards.
Just feign deafness for a bit.
Yeah.
So then, have you got any future racing ambitions?
Yeah, so to be honest, it's relatively fresh, but I want to get back to where I was before, full-time racing. Would love another factory contract. I'm not going to lie, the prospect of racing with and within Mercedes is incredibly attractive to me, and they don't really know this yet, but this is something that I will be pushing for massively. It's a brand that I really love, and it's something that I've always wanted to be a part of. So I'm going to go after it, and I'm going to do the best job I can in this car to prove why I should be given that opportunity. I would like to get into world endurance. Is the goal, probably. If not world endurance, I would love to do something like DTM. Purely because I've never done anything where I haven't raced with a teammate, which I would just love that opportunity for it to be like all experience. On me. Yeah, no excuses, no nothing. It's like you're either good enough or you're not. And so something along those lines, I think, is the goal. At the moment, I'm pretty happy with how everything's going in and around my driving. Probably getting more noticed now. I'm not attached to anyone than I was when I was. So I'm relishing in that.
Tick in the plus column there and just make yourself look even more appealing and see who comes biting.
Yeah, exactly. Having to learn a lot in the process, like social media, all that sort of stuff, something that I am traditionally crap at. And to be perfectly honest, Abby helps a lot with that because she is amazing at that sort of stuff. So I've been learning a lot on that side of things because it's so important. And I took for granted how important it was when I was racing all the time. And then as soon as that kind of stopped through COVID, I was like, oh my God, I need some of that. So yeah, that's been really good. And yeah, just like I said, 100% focused person all the time, working towards the next step. So even if you don't see or hear about it or me, you can guarantee it's happening. Because
if we find you wherever you are, otherwise you will be working towards that somewhere. So
yeah, exactly. I'm 100% a hustler. So yeah, that's good.
Future Mercedes Works driver. Just
you heard it here first.
A couple of random questions to finish off then. Wouldn't be a chat with me if we didn't have these, which I'm sure everybody's probably told you about as well. If you're obscenely wealthy, what weird things would you indulge in?
To be honest, that's a really good one because I don't know. I quite like jet skis. Probably go and do water sporty type stuff. I think the long-term goal is to retire somewhere hot with a golf course. I'm terrible at golf. I literally cannot hit a ball to save my life. But I quite
if
like.
If you've got a private golf course, then no one needs to see that.
Exactly. Yeah, I quite like the idea of it. I think the truth is I'd be too competitive and too rubbish. I would absolutely hate it. But that is probably where I'd like to end up. But yeah, to be honest, it's not something I've ever really thought about because I'm so driven to be successful. I haven't really thought about what happens at the other end. But
I've been playing on your mind later tonight before bed then.
Yeah. When I get there, hopefully I'll just know. But yeah, unsure.
And then finally, would you rather sip gin with Ryan Reynolds or shoot some tequila shots with The Rock?
As much as I hate tequila and am probably partial to a little pink gin, as much as I don't like admitting that to people, I feel like I would have a much better night doing shots with The Rock. I feel like that would be a pretty messy evening.
Messy but memorable, I think, is the best way to phrase that one.
I'd say so, yeah. Yeah, as long as he didn't punch me or something, I'm certain I wouldn't remember that.
No, I don't think you'd remember that at all. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. I want to wish you best of luck for 2022 and beyond there. And yeah, thank you for your time today.
Great, no problem. Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Matt for coming onto the Kerbs with me, and I want to wish him the best of luck for the rest of 2022 season and beyond. Join me again soon when I'll be chatting to another famous face from the world of motorsport. And in the meantime, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and check out the other interviews on the Kerbs YouTube channel. If you want to hear more from me, you can listen to me chat about F1, amongst other things, over on the Undercut podcast, and you can also hear me dissecting everything Nitro RX related, including chatting with special guests, over on the unofficial Nitro RX podcast. Both podcasts are available here on YouTube, as well as over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you like to listen. You can also follow me over on Instagram at t.albers.daily.onthekerbs and read my various motorsport articles over on Is It Fast and Paddock Sorority. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next week for the next episode.